Do you guys ever hear of the Cash Landrum incident?
How do you spell it?
Cash Landrum, Kash Landrum. Reported incident of an unidentified flying object in 1980 in Texas. Dayton, Texas, to be specific. On December 29th, they seem to like the end of the year. Seems like that's a common UFO thing. Betty Cash and her friend Vicky and Vicky's 7-year-old grandson Colby were all driving home from a night out. They were having some dinner. About 9 p.m., they're driving down a country Texas road, and they see a light pass overhead. They think nothing of it. They're about 30 miles away from the Houston International Airport, so they figure it's just another airplane passing over the top. A few minutes later, they drive, and they see what appears to be the same light, only much, much closer and much brighter. As they get closer, they can see that the light appears to take a sort of geometric shape. It looks vaguely like a large diamond. In fact, so large that it appears to be the size of the local Dayton water tower. And we have a water tower down the street. You guys know how big those things are. It's like pretty large. Ms. Cash and her friend, they were born again Christians, and they believed that they were seeing the second coming of Jesus.
Always.
So they believed that this giant flaming light-emitting diamond was not going to hurt them, that it was Jesus.
So this looked like it was on fire. It was a...
So this is interesting.
Flaming Jesus.
Normally when you get the UFO, at least from the stories that we've had so far, it's formless light orb or, kind of moving around in shape. This seemed to have a very specific defined shape. They said it was diamond-shaped with the top and bottom points flattened off. And at the bottom point, there was a sort of intermittent emitting cone of fire that they described. That there was these flames that were shooting out of the bottom of this diamond. Yeah. And from witness accounts, at least from Vicky and from the Cash Landrum account, they said that it seemed to be sort of hovering by the effect of this fire. Like when the fire would dissipate, the diamond would slightly lower, the fire would kick back in, and it would raise itself back up. So,
I mean, like a hot air balloon.
Correct, exactly. Sort of like almost what I would say, sort of a proto UFO, right? Like we think of them as just zipping around with no real like energy being expelled. This seems to have actually been burning something to keep itself up.
Okay, so when scientists chart stars, they always note brilliance, right? As like plus 2 point whatever. Did they have any kind of like brilliance marker?
I don't think so. These are just like a couple of people in an Oldsmobile in Texas. They thought it was, I guess, to apply it to some amount of measurement that we could tell, it was about as bright as the lights they would expect to see from like a passenger plane flying overhead at a distance. That's perfect. That's exactly what I'm referring at least
to.
Initially, and then when they got closer, they realized it was obviously much closer, much brighter, and much hotter. The flames that were coming out of this object cooked the ground, cooked pretty much everything in the general vicinity. The woman remembers having to, or told police that she had to use her jacket to open the car door back up because it was so hot that they burned their hands. At one point, there was during the civil case, which we'll get more into that, there was evidence that she had pressed her hand into the vinyl dashboard of the car. It had softened so much from being heated that she was able to make an impression of her hand in the dashboard.
That's not good.
Basically, this car was extremely, extremely hot. They pulled up close. They thought they were seeing Jesus. They wanted to obviously be the first ones on the scene.
Let's go get a good look at the Jesus.
Well, you are right.
Honey.
I mean, you see Jesus, you want to like...
It's flaming Jesus, honey. Let's get as close as possible.
You want to get there before everyone pisses him off and like he's in a good mood. Right. Like, you know, first in line.
Hey, Jesus.
Like, how's it going? How's Earth?
I want a high five flaming Jesus.
So Jerome Clark was just somebody who gained some information on the incident, wrote to describe it. The object, intensely bright and a dull metallic silver, was shaped like a huge upright diamond, about the size of the Dayton Water Tower, with its top and bottom cut off so that they were flat rather than pointed. Small blue lights ringed its center, and periodically over the next few minutes, flames shot out of the bottom, flaring outward, creating the effect of a large cone. Every time the fire dissipated, the UFO floated several feet downwards, but then when the flames blasted out again, the object rose to about the same distance. Again, these flames appeared to have scorched, and not only scorched, but, and we'll get into this a little bit later, radioactively cooked the grass and vegetation around the edge of this road. It was
like a new wave.
Right. They went in and did actual like spectroanalysis on the stuff, and it had decayed and frayed in the way that things do when they're like exposed to high levels of microwave radiation. And this is also, I guess, slightly confusing, because you would think, all right, so we've got it, right? Aliens, microwaves, they're coming down, they're weird, they're radioactive.
Yeah, but why would they use like microwaves to deforest crops?
I think I think it was the burnt areas was the result of the craft, the exhaust from the craft, the flames or whatever that were coming out of the bottom of this thing.
But the combination of flame and microwave is like, those are two different sorts of energy.
Right.
So it's like, are they,
maybe
it'd be like a new wave oven. They're using convection and conduction.
Microwave heats from the inside, right?
Right. It like excites the water molecules to heat things up. But I think all of this, to me, initially starts to point to, people are going to think like, oh, well, it's extraterrestrial aliens. I think the interesting thing about this incident is the fact that not only did they see this insanely, apparently Jesus-y flaming diamond thing, but also that there were 23 Army helicopters accompanying this flying diamond. Many of them identified later as CH-47 Chinook, the dual rotor, the big giant dual rotor ones. And this actually becomes interesting later in the story. After the fact, Cash Landry party was able to end up talking to apparently one of the pilots who was piloting one of these helicopters. It flew into Dayton, and the grandmother of this little boy, Colby, the 7-year-old, remembered him getting very agitated, like seeing the helicopter apparently like triggered him back into thinking it was going to be the UFO. This like really, sort of strange experience for him. They went up to talk to the helicopter pilot in the hopes of just kind of, seeing what happened, like what was going on. And they told them, hey, we were there when the UFO landed. We have like the burns and stuff to show for it. And they were told that the guy immediately hushed up, walked away, and was told not to talk to them, and ushered them off the military base. Apparently it was several different witnesses saw not the flaming diamond, the flaming Jesus diamond, but several of the police scanners and other witnesses, one of them being Detective Lamar Walker of the local Dayton police, also allegedly saw several of these Chinook helicopters in the area, which is sort of an uncommon sight. I mean, they weren't really, it's not a, heavily militarized area to see these.
Here come the black helicopters again. Right. Oh, it must be Wednesday. FEMA camps.
After this sighting, they naturally were extremely freaked out. They went home, and that night all fell extremely ill.
Really?
Either there were general symptoms of nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, weakness, burning sensations in their eyes and skin, feelings that they were suffering from extreme sunburns.
These are all side effects of taking Aloysia.
So Betty Cash appears to have the worst of the injuries. Instead of getting better after several days, her symptoms worsened. She was starting to receive several large blisters on her skin. She was actually taken to the emergency room a few days later and basically told them that she could not walk. She was in so much pain. She had lost large clumps of hair and skin. And she was back in the hospital. They released her after a day. She was back in the hospital within 2 weeks, and that started a stint of over 24 hospital visits. This woman was extremely, extremely sick after this.
Wow. Which
leads into this being one of the only actual recorded UFO incidents that ends in a civil court case. She was attempting to get someone to help her pay for the medical damage.
Are you kidding me? Really?
She suffered.
I've never heard of any kind of UFO case that actually went to a civil trial.
It says here that the radiologist who examined the witness's medical records for MUFON said that we have strong evidence that these patients have suffered secondary damage to ionizing radiation, and it is also possible there was an infrared component as well.
How could someone fake that, or why would they fake that?
Right.
You know, I mean, that's not something that you just encounter in your everyday life.
It's the most elaborate form of suicide I've ever heard. If that is the
You're
case.
standing in front of a microwave and be like, all right, someone's going to pay for this. So they did have, about 2 years later, it would have been in 1982, Lieutenant Colonel George Sarin of the Department of the Army Inspector General did say that they began a formal investigation into the matter, and they claimed that they could not corroborate the existence of any of the helicopters or flying objects that were that Miss Landry and Miss Cash had seen. So obviously, these women made up the fact that they were basically cooked alive in their Oldsmobile on the side of the road in Dayton, Texas, and the government doesn't know anything about it.
Yeah, of course.
Easy.
I mean, come on. We've all done that old, hey, let's fool the government by microwaving ourselves. Yeah, come on. It's an old, it's like it's basically like the next generation of the flaming poop bag on the porch, you know? It's just an old gambit.
Yeah, those are fun.
So eventually, obviously, through the horror that they went through and the illnesses and sort of injuries that they suffered, they were both kind of at a loss. They didn't really know who to talk to, so they reached out to their senators and asked what should happen, what should they do. The senators suggested that they actually file a complaint with the Bergstrom Air Force Base, which would have been the nearby military base, and to seek compensation from them, to hire a lawyer and sue them.
Wow.
So their attorney, Peter Gersten, took on the case, sued the government for $20 million, obviously lost. The U.S. District Court dismissed their case, noting that they had no proof that there were helicopters or a large flaming diamond. And later on, this woman went on to be hypnotized on mainstream media on a TV show called That's Incredible.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's from the 80s, right?
That's incredible. It's like late 70s and 80s, and I remember.
It was in the Black Flag song, right? TV Party Tonight. Oh, yeah. That's incredible. Points.
Oh, yeah, there you
Rise above, that's incredible.
All right.
I have a punk rock license.
You guys are high-fiving now. Wow.
You're high-fiving.
I'm not trying to. It's like I've been getting rid of the bro part, but my the left side of my body just keeps on high-fiving with just completely unconsciously.
It's like idle hands for bros.
So, to this day, they haven't had any. Both of them died, I think, actually. Yeah, Betty Cash died at the age of 71 in 1998. And Vicki Landrum died on September 12th, 2007. So they are both not with us, but the story of this weird UFO encounter and the weird helicopters and the burns that they suffered and the burns that were, I guess, incurred on the side of the road remain a mystery.
So that was the Cash Landrum UFO incident, correct? Okay.